Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Ever Oasis for the 3DS. This title was sent to me by Nintendo so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. So what is Ever Oasis? So I already talked to you guys about this game a while back in the same video that I talked about the new 2DS XL, because that was kind of like the first time I got hands-on with the game. And back then, I have to say that I kind of feel like the demo that they gave us was not really representative of the final product, because I wasn't really able to grasp the entirety of the concept of Ever Oasis back then. Now that I've actually gotten to spend quite a few more hours with the game, and let me just tell you, I'm making this video very much as a first impressions thing, because even though I might have played, I don't know, anywhere between 5 and 6 hours of Ever Oasis at this point, I gotta tell you, 5 or 6 hours, I think I've barely even scratched the surface, and that is a good thing. This is one of those games that is going to keep you entertained for hours on end, for quite a long time, in my personal opinion. And I was surprised as to just like the quality of this title. And some of you guys are like, but what is the game about? So the description on Nintendo's website is, it is an RPG slash action adventure. Personally, what I would call it is, I would just go straight on and label it, it's a JRPG. Even though, I mean, you know, JRPGs come with all these different connotations and all this other stuff, but it's like, to me, there are certain things that make a JRPG, and those things are the longevity of the title and the amount of things that you are able to do in a title. In my opinion, this would qualify. Now, this game is being developed by Grezzo. Now, Grezzo is the studio that has worked on remastering and rebuilding, bringing back some of the Zelda games to the 3DS, stuff like Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time 3D, as well as Majora's Mask 3D. They also developed the Triforce Heroes that I personally really like. Although I have to be honest, that game is really only good if you have 3 other people to play it with, because solo, not that great. But these are all titles that, in my opinion, are really good, and it is also being produced by the same person who produced the Legend of Mana series, which pretty much every time I hear talk about the Mana series is talked to in very high reverence. Like, people really enjoyed that series. I personally never got around to playing them, but yeah, Koichi Ishii is the one behind producing Ever Oasis, which kind of explains, like I kept saying, the overwhelming quality of this title. So the first thing that you guys will notice from some of the gameplay footage that you will see throughout this video is that the game has a really cool art style. And I know that I like to stress out when there's a particularly interesting art style on video games. And this one, it's got like this chibi style to it. So obviously you got the smaller little, the smaller characters with big heads. But it also has like this Persian deserty theme to it that makes it really cool, in my personal opinion. It makes it feel very fresh and unique. It's not like a style that I've seen in a game before, personally. And to top it off, beyond that art style, you also have this interesting story behind it, which is, I'm not going to say that it's the best story ever, but the way the characters are designed, because essentially your character is this special race called a seedling, and then there are other races throughout the game which are considered the desert folk, and I don't know all the names of all the different races, but the seedlings have something very special, because a few among the seedlings have the ability to bind with these water spirits and create these oases out in the desert, therefore the name Ever Oasis. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of the background of the very start of the story of the game, so it's not spoilery or anything like that. It's just to kind of give you the setup of your character motivation and all this other stuff. All this stuff takes part in like the first 5 or 10 minutes of the game, so again, not a spoiler at all. But basically, you are you have a brother, and your brother is like the chief of an oasis when you start the game. And at the start of the game, that oasis, the oasis of your brother, gets attacked by this entity known only as Chaos. Chaos is kind of like it's almost like the dark side of the Force when it comes to Oasis. And Chaos is able to influence these different creatures through the desert, and that is why people who travel and brave through the desert require oasis, so that they can actually rest and, replenish themselves and get supplies and all this other stuff, so that they can continue traversing the desert. So oases are essentially, as the name implies, there are these oases in the middle of the desert, but they need to be maintained so that they gain protection from chaos. Unfortunately, at the start of the game, the oasis that your brother runs is overrun by chaos, and your brother kind of like saves you and sends you far away in the form of a seedling, and you end up next to a water spirit, and therefore you start building the last oasis in the desert, which is it's you know, like I said, it's not like the most original story ever, but like the setting of it, you know, being in the desert and all this other stuff, that makes it quite unique in my opinion. And also the whole thing about building an oasis brings an interesting dynamic to the game, which is, as you begin building your oasis, it starts out super basic. You have no residents. It's just you and this water spirit, and you're the last hope of the desert, basically, because chaos is taking over everything else, and travelers have no place to go because there are no more oases in the desert. So you start out your oasis, and then you're supposed to start collecting residents. Now, collecting residents is usually pretty easy. They start showing up after some time because time passes. The game has this time passing mechanic. Time is constantly passing in the game. And as time passes, as days passes, at the beginning of every new day, you will receive new visitors in your oasis. Now, as you receive these visitors, you'll have to do quests, which usually involve you giving them some materials so that they can craft something. And after that, usually they will want to become residents of your oasis because they know that you're a nice guy, you're the chief, you're doing cool stuff for them, and you're going to maintain this oasis and all this other stuff. But basically, as they become residents, eventually some of them will want to open up shops in your oasis, which I believe... This is something like, no, actually, it's not like Animal Crossing, but I think that some of the maintenance stuff in the game might be appealing to people who enjoy Animal Crossing. So it's kind of like a mix of like all of these different mechanics coming into play and ultimately forming its own unique style of JRPG, which again, I'm totally blown away by this game. I'm not sure if you guys have realized. I don't want to overhype it because I don't know if this is going to be for everyone. Like I said, this has this cute art style that some people are not going to be into, but you guys will be seeing that through the gameplay. But from a mechanics standpoint, I'm constantly surprised because, like, here's another thing. Like, JRPGs and usually RPGs of this nature usually do a really bad job of explaining the different mechanics that you have in the game because they try to front load all of the tutorials, so they just like spam you with text box after text box to text box, and by the time like this crash course into understanding what the game is like, you're usually like, I didn't memorize half of that. This game actually manages to throw all those conventions away, and it manages to do a really good job of explaining all of its mechanics and introducing new mechanics at a regular pace to keep the player engaged and doing things and actually playing the game while slowly learning how to do things. Like, for instance, the first few hours, you don't even learn how to form a party, how to equip other characters and stuff. It's just like you going out into the desert by yourself and exploring and doing whatever you want. And only once it starts becoming really necessary for you to actually form a party to procure stuff and do proper dungeon crawling, only then the game is like, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to form a party. Same thing with like bloom booths. Okay, so here's how you make a bloom booth. There you go. Oh, the bloom booth later down the line after you've done other things like, oh, the bloom booth ran out of materials. Here's how you restock materials. You know, they're constantly introducing these mechanics at a very organic pace, which I found surprising because usually these games don't bother to do that kind of stuff. And it's been impressing me pretty much left and right. But the mechanics, as I was saying, once you acquire your new residents, they will set up their bloom booths, which are like shops in your oasis, and then other visitors will come in and they will buy stuff off of those shops, and you can get a share of the profits. And the currency in this game is these things called duodems, which I'm not sure what they're supposed to represent, but I think it's water, because obviously the currency of the desert, what is the thing that is most rare in the desert, is water. Therefore, the currency of this game is essentially water. Now, as you get more and more residents to join up with your races, and as you complete quests for them. And like I said, these quests can involve you just going out of your oasis into the desert, killing a couple of creatures, getting some material, stuff like that, and then come back, and then they will form their bloom boots. And as you get more residents, and as they set up their own shops and stuff into the world, essentially your oasis starts leveling up as well. And as your oasis levels up, and as the people of your oasis are happier and all this other stuff, as you're maintaining all of these things that the game has for you to do, basically your character becomes stronger as he is exploring the world. And that's the one thing that I haven't talked about, because I'm trying to segment this video into explaining, okay, here's your oasis. Your oasis has all these things that you have to do. And then once you go outside of your oasis, it's almost like a completely different game, because at that point it becomes the RPG aspect of it with actual combat. It's real-time combat. It is not turn-based or anything like that. And you're going to be going through the world and exploring. I haven't even done that much exploration, if I'm to be totally honest, because it's just been, you know, the game starts slow. Even though I'm enjoying the start of it and the introduction of new mechanics, the game does start slow, and there's not a whole lot for you to explore. There's like 4 or 5 caves, and they're pretty basic. And as you get to these caves, I'm not saying that like you select, oh, go to cave A, cave B. No, it's like you have this overworld map. I'm saying things wrong. It's not an overworld map. It's an actual map. You navigate it with your character. And as you go with your character, you encounter monsters. You encounter cacti. You encounter stuff that you can mine if you have the proper character to mine. And as you go about your business throughout the world, you will find these different caves. And each of these caves will have a couple of puzzles, a couple of special mechanics that you will need specific characters to get through those mechanics. Like there's a character who can roll himself up into a ball. And as he does this, this enables him to like go through holes in specific dungeons, thus enabling you to solve specific puzzles that involve characters going through holes. There is another character who is not even a seedling. It's just a desert folk. And she has a spear, and this spear enables her to turn on specific switches and stuff. It also enables her to flip over vases, which then actually combine together with other puzzles that use the character that rolls himself up into a ball. And there's all these things that you will be able to do depending on the characters that you have with you and depending on the skills that they have available to them. This also means that gathering specific resources will require specific characters, which is why party formation is so important. It's about whether or not you want to go into a dungeon and gather specific materials. It's about you want to go into that same dungeon and actually solve the puzzles. It's about you want to go into that same dungeon and actually be effective at dishing out damage. And in case you guys are wondering, oh, that means we have to go constantly back and forth between the oasis. There's a quick travel mechanic that will enable you to go back to your oasis whenever you want. And you can go back to the place where we're almost like a town portal in Diablo. You can go back to your oasis, swap your characters, and instantly go back to where you were in case you run into a problem where it's like, oh, I've went through this whole dungeon, and now there's this one specific puzzle where I need this one specific character, and she's not around, and this is a problem. No. At a moment's notice, you can warp back, get the characters that you need, warp back in, no problem whatsoever. And it's very satisfying to explore. I've actually only done my real first dungeon shortly before I record this video, where I actually had a really cool boss fight as well with some actual interesting mechanics, because most of the combat that I've seen so far, you can usually circle strafe your way through most of it and avoid most of the attacks and then just counterattack. But depending on which weapons you have equipped, you're going to be dealing damage in different ways to different monsters. So certain monsters will be more vulnerable to the spear of a certain character. Other monsters will be more vulnerable to the thrown item of other characters. So you'll have to balance out your party, both with the balance of skills as well as with the balance of stuff that you will want to grab of that dungeon and the balance of actually being effective in combat. And all of these things combined make for a really satisfying gameplay experience and loop. At least in my personal opinion, because you're basically, like I said, this is a game that consists of you developing your base, which is your oasis, and is going to require a lot of maintenance because you're going to be constantly having to stock up the stores, because your seedlings back at the oasis, they are selling goods. but they can only sell goods if they have like the raw materials to produce those goods. And who gives them the raw materials? You, the chief of the Oasis. So as such, you will have to gather materials both outside of the Oasis as well as inside, because you can also plant stuff at the Oasis. And as you plant seeds and whatnot, you can actually get special materials off of those seeds that you can then give to the stores as well. There's also some berries that you can collect at the Oasis. And you will also be able to gather healing items at the Oasis. As time passes by, stuff will happen, and you will use your wind power to collect stuff from the Oasis. Both collecting of resources by gathering the your percentage, your cut, so to speak, of the sales that they make on your Oasis, and also just like random items that will appear throughout your Oasis. As you progress through the game, eventually one of the seedlings will provide you with a special plant that also enables you to craft gear, which is just another system on top of all these things that I've been talking about. You can upgrade your sword, you can change your clothes. Your clothes are strictly cosmetic, but you have like a sword and 2 accessories, I think, and those will actually change the status of your character, and depending on the materials you've collected, you'll be able to craft more powerful swords. You'll also be able to equip all of the seedlings in your town with different gear if you so desire, and I think you can also change their clothes if you want to like customize the way these characters look a little bit more. And it's like you will want to equip them well, so that when you take them with you on an adventure, obviously they're able to hold out their own. Otherwise, you might have a slightly tougher time. But just maintaining the Oasis itself is usually enough to really power your character up, because you have way more health pool than you will usually have. Like if your Oasis is in a really good state, which I've been keeping my Oasis pretty much well tended, usually when you go out, you will have 2 lives. So even if you die, you can instantly revive exactly where you are. And to top it off, I have like 6 or 7 times the amount of hit points that you would usually have if your Oasis is not doing well. So maintaining your Oasis is an extremely important part of the adventure, and at the same time, it's also a very satisfying part of the adventure because it's tied so well with the narrative of the game itself. And ultimately, I just think the game is a lot of fun. Like I said, the combat is somewhat simplistic from the fights that I've done so far, but I believe it is going to get much more complex as you dive deeper into the game, because like I said, the game is doing a really good job of introducing new mechanics to you. I believe such things will happen with combat as well. Like the last boss that I faced was actually a boss that I felt, okay, this could have been dangerous if, you know, I wasn't used to the kind of dodging attacks left and right from playing my experience playing other games. You know, more casual players might have had a little bit of trouble there, but ultimately, it's just a very satisfying game. Like, I'm surprised, and I think that is the message of this video, is how surprisingly good this game was, and I just wasn't expecting it. I was expecting that I was going to enjoy it. I wasn't expecting I was going to enjoy it this much. But anyway, leave it to Nintendo to blow our minds away with new IP, just like they blew my mind with ARMS, and now they've blown my mind with Ever Oasis. Like, really good game. If you enjoy this kind of gameplay that you're watching on screen, I have no problems whatsoever recommending this game to anyone that enjoys what you're watching, because it is a lot of fun. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. Leave me all the comments, feedback, all the kinds of good stuff in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one.